On my 80th birthday, I planned a simple family gathering at my beloved home. My son's wife, Chloe, called, laughing from Cabo, telling me they'd completely forgotten. Then she casually asked me to clean my grandson's disgustingly messy bathroom. I simply listened, a quiet storm brewing inside. You won't believe what I did next. Share this story and tell me where you're listening from so I can see how far my voice has reached. Eleanor awoke on her 80th birthday with a familiar tremor of excitement and a quiet hum of purpose. Her home, a sturdy brick sanctuary that had sheltered 3 generations of her family, felt alive with the promise of warmth and celebration. It wasn't just a house, it was a living scrapbook. Each creak of the floorboards, each faded patch on the wallpaper, a whisper of a cherished memory. For weeks, she had been meticulously planning a simple, intimate gathering. Nothing grand, just her son Ethan, his wife Chloe, their twin boys, Leo and Noah, and perhaps Chloe's sister and a few friendly neighbors. This modest celebration, held within these beloved walls, was all she truly desired. The past few days had been a flurry of loving activity. She had scrubbed every surface until it gleamed, the scent of lemon polish mingling with the faint, comforting aroma of baked goods. Every silver frame on the mantelpiece, each ceramic figurine on the bookshelf, had been dusted and buffed. She had spent hours in her vibrant garden, carefully selecting the most exquisite blooms, their petals soft as velvet, their fragrance, a gentle perfume for the dining table. A brand new, crisp white tablecloth, adorned with delicate lace trim, lay folded on the linen shelf, waiting for its grand unveiling. And in the kitchen, a symphony of savory aromas had begun to dance as she prepared Ethan's favorite dishes. A succulent roast chicken, crispy on the outside, tender within, fluffy mashed potatoes whipped with butter and cream, and a vibrant green bean casserole, all crafted with the precise care only a mother could offer. By 1 o'clock, the dining room was a picture of quiet perfection. The table, set for 8, shimmered under the afternoon light, filtering through the sheer curtains. Each plate was perfectly aligned, each fork, knife, and spoon placed just so. The crystal glasses, polished to a fault, sparkled beside cloth napkins folded into elegant swans. The centerpiece, a riot of hydrangeas and roses from her garden, brought a burst of color and life to the room. She surveyed her handiwork, a soft smile gracing her lips, picturing Ethan's approving nod, Chloe's polite compliments, and the boys' boisterous laughter. Every detail was a silent testament to her enduring love and her anticipation of their arrival. 2 o'clock arrived, then drifted past. Eleanor, dressed in her new floral print dress, a soft lavender that complemented her silver hair, checked the clock again. A flicker of impatience, quickly quelled, stirred within her. Traffic, perhaps? Or the boys were just running late. She busied herself arranging a stray rose petal, smoothing a wrinkle on the tablecloth. By 3:30, the silence in the house had deepened, heavy and expectant. The roast chicken, once perfectly golden, was now slowly cooling, its crisp skin softening. The mashed potatoes had lost their light fluffiness, a slight skin forming on top. The laughter she had imagined filling the room remained an echo in her mind. A knot of unease began to tighten in her stomach. At precisely 4:30, unable to bear the growing quiet, Eleanor picked up the phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed Ethan's mobile number. It rang once, twice, then Chloe's voice, sharp and edged with irritation, answered. "Hello?" she snapped, the word cutting through Eleanor's quiet hope. Behind Chloe, a cacophony of sounds erupted, the splash of water, the thumping beat of music, and the unmistakable peal of carefree laughter. It sounded like a party, a very loud, very distant party. "Chloe, dear? Is Ethan there?" Eleanor asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Oh, it's you, Eleanor," Chloe replied, her tone softening barely an inch, though it still carried an underlying register of annoyance. "No, Ethan's not around. He's busy." There was a pause, a brief moment of static, then Chloe continued, a hint of amused exasperation in her voice. "We're actually in Cabo right now. Spontaneous vacation, you know? Ethan just sprung it on me yesterday. Boys are loving it, splashing around like maniacs. It's crazy here. Eleanor felt a cold wave wash over her, numbing her senses. Cabo? Spontaneous vacation? Her mind reeled. Cabo? She repeated, the word sounding foreign, distant. But, today is my birthday, Chloe. We had plans. The family dinner. Here. At 2:00. The words were out before she could temper them, a fragile accusation hanging in the air. Chloe let out a dismissive sigh, clearly annoyed by the interruption to her spontaneous paradise. Oh, right, that, she said, her voice dripping with casual disdain. Honestly, Eleanor, we completely forgot. With the last-minute trip, everything just got pushed aside. Besides, she continued, a faint, almost imperceptible scoff in her tone. You're probably just going to clean the house anyway, right? That's what you always do. The words struck Eleanor with the force of a physical blow. That's what you always do. The implication was clear. Cutting. Her love, her effort, her meticulous care. Reduced to a mundane, expected chore. She was not a cherished matriarch, not a beloved mother or grandmother. She was simply the unpaid housekeeper, tending to the family's needs, whether they were present or not. Before Eleanor could even process the crushing weight of that statement, Chloe's voice chimed in again, a careless afterthought. Oh, and if you have a minute, could you just pop upstairs and clean Leo's bathroom? He somehow managed to make a total disaster zone of it before we left. Thanks, you're a lifesaver. With a click, the line went dead, leaving Eleanor in the echoing silence of her meticulously prepared home. Eleanor stood motionless in her spotless kitchen, the receiver still clutched in her hand, the dial tone a mournful hum. The uneaten roast chicken, the cold mashed potatoes, the pristine table set for 8, all mocked her. Her new lavender dress, chosen with such care, felt heavy, suffocating. Her home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a grand, empty stage, ready for a play that would never be performed. The realization hit her with sickening clarity. She was not just forgotten, she was disposable. An expectation, a convenience, nothing more. That night, as the moon cast long, ghostly shadows across her immaculate dining room, Eleanor sat alone at the perfectly set table. The glorious birthday cake she had baked for herself, a rich chocolate creation with creamy vanilla frosting, felt like a cruel irony. She cut a small slice, the knife making a soft, lonely sound as it met the plate. She ate it slowly, in silence, the sweetness turning bitter in her mouth. The taste of chocolate, once a comfort, was now tinged with the flavor of profound loneliness and the stinging realization that, in her own home, on her own birthday, she had been relegated to nothing more than an unpaid housekeeper. The days that followed her 80th birthday settled upon Eleanor with a profound, almost suffocating stillness. The meticulously set dining table remained untouched for another day, a stark monument to absence. The scent of roasted chicken, once so inviting, now carried a faint, stale melancholy. Her birthday dress hung in the closet, unworn, a silent accusation. But amidst the pervasive loneliness, a new, unsettling clarity began to dawn, sharp and cutting. This wasn't just a missed celebration. It felt like a deliberate erasure. One quiet afternoon, while tidying the living room that still hummed with the phantom energy of her preparations, Eleanor noticed Ethan's tablet. It lay carelessly abandoned on the coffee table, a sleek, modern device contrasting sharply with her antique furniture. She usually avoided such gadgets, preferring the tactile comfort of books and handwritten letters. But a strange, insistent pull drew her to it. Hesitantly, she picked it up, her fingers tracing the smooth, cool surface. The screen lit up, displaying a vibrant carousel of images, a visual assault on her quiet solitude. It was a window into their spontaneous vacation. Photo after photo flashed by, a relentless montage of luxury and carefree indulgence. There was Ethan, grinning, a cocktail in hand, lounging beside an infinity pool that melted into the azure horizon. Chloe, in a series of designer bikinis, posed dramatically against various scenic backdrops, her skin impossibly tanned. The twin boys, Leo and Noah, were plastered with wide, ecstatic smiles, surrounded by a pile of what looked like brand new, expensive water toys and gadgets she had never seen before. Each image was a direct, vibrant contrast to Eleanor's own muted, solitary birthday. Chloe's captions, written in an exuberantly casual style, twisted the knife deeper. "Best family vacation ever," one declared, beneath a shot of them clinking glasses at a beachfront restaurant. Another, accompanying a picture of Chloe sipping a brightly colored drink, read, "So spontaneous. Sometimes you just have to treat yourself." The word spontaneous grated on Eleanor's nerves, a jarring discord after Chloe's explanation on the phone. It was a performance, a curated narrative of effortless bliss, entirely at odds with the quiet ache in Eleanor's own heart. A cold, methodical resolve began to form within Eleanor. She carried the tablet to her small home office, a room usually reserved for bills and correspondence. This new insight into their extravagant lifestyles spurred her to revisit her own financial records. For over a decade, she had diligently kept detailed ledgers, each entry meticulously noted. Now, she flipped through the pages, her gaze sharper, more critical. Month after month, year after year, the pattern emerged with chilling precision. Entries detailing sums given to Ethan, marked as emergency loan, car repair, home improvement, school supplies, dental work, and even short on rent. They were always presented as urgent, necessary expenses, accompanied by Ethan's apologetic assurances of repayment. Yet, not a single penny had ever been returned. Eleanor traced the columns, her mind calculating, adding, the total sum was staggering, far more than she had ever allowed herself to acknowledge. Her modest savings, carefully accrued over a lifetime, had been steadily siphoned away. It became terrifyingly clear. Her money hadn't been funding emergencies, it had been funding their lavish lifestyle. The new car repairs she'd covered had seemingly coincided with Chloe's new designer handbag. The home improvements were always shortly followed by another expensive vacation. Their feigned financial struggles, the constant pleas for a little extra help, were a carefully constructed charade designed to exploit her generosity. While she lived simply, often denying herself small luxuries, they had been enjoying a life of comfort and indulgence, all at her expense. Still on Ethan's tablet, her fingers, now bolder, navigated through the various applications. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but a nascent suspicion guided her. Then, she saw it. A confirmation email from a travel agency, dated 3 weeks prior. It detailed their flight itinerary, hotel booking, and activities for their spontaneous Cabo getaway. 3 weeks. It had been planned, meticulously arranged, long before her birthday. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a deliberate choice. They had known. They had simply chosen not to be there. Memories, once hazy and dismissed as insignificant, now coalesced into a damning montage. Countless times she had canceled her own lunch dates with friends, postponed her garden club meetings, or foregone a quiet afternoon of reading because Ethan or Chloe had called with an urgent request. "Can you watch the boys? We have a last-minute dinner." "Mom, could you cook us a meal? We're swamped." "Eleanor, we just need a quick cleanup of the guest bathroom before my sister arrives." She had always complied, eager to help, hungry for their fleeting smiles of gratitude, for the brief feeling of being needed. But appreciation had rarely followed. Instead, it was often met with casual indifference or another request. Then, a particularly sharp memory surfaced. A comment Chloe had made during one of her impromptu babysitting sessions. "It's so nice to have family who understand their role," Chloe had chirped, sipping a glass of wine, as Eleanor cleaned up the boys' discarded toys. At the time, Eleanor had taken it as a compliment, a warm acknowledgement of her contribution. Now, the words echoed in her mind with a chilling, insidious new meaning. Her role wasn't that of a beloved family member, a cherished elder. Her role was their financial safety net, their domestic help, their free babysitter. She was a resource, a utility, to be deployed as needed, then put away until the next demand. A cold, dangerous clarity washed over Eleanor. It wasn't the searing heat of anger, but a glacial understanding that settled deep within her bones. She wasn't sad anymore. She wasn't hurt. She was beyond that. She was a resource to be used, not a person to be loved. And the realization, though devastating, was liberating. It stripped away decades of self-doubt, of trying to be indispensable, of bending over backward to earn their affection. It replaced it with an unwavering conviction. She deserved better. Much, much better than being taken for granted, lied to, and exploited. Things, she resolved with a quiet, steely determination, were about to change dramatically. Monday morning arrived, crisp and clear, but for Eleanor, it held a distinctly different air than any Monday before. There was no lingering cloud of sadness, no residue of self-pity. Instead, she woke with a new, unwavering purpose, a quiet resolve that settled deep within her bones. The house, this beautiful, 3-generation-old home that Ethan often referred to as his birthright and safety net, would be sold. The thought brought not a pang of regret, but a surprising sense of liberation. Her first call was to Arthur Blackwood, her long-standing attorney, a man whose calm demeanor and sharp legal mind had guided her through many transitions, including the loss of her beloved husband, George. Arthur answered promptly, his voice warm and familiar. "Eleanor, to what do I owe the pleasure?" Eleanor didn't mince words. "Arthur, I need to sell the house." There was a brief silence on the other end. A pause of genuine surprise. "The house? Eleanor, are you certain? It's been in your family for so long. And Ethan, it's solely in my name, isn't it, Arthur?" she interjected, her voice steady. "Inherited from George, no strings attached." "Absolutely, Eleanor. 100% yours. Ethan has no legal claim to it whatsoever. But I must admit, I'm quite taken aback. If you sell, where will Ethan and his family live? They've always assumed." Arthur trailed off, sensing the shift in her tone. Eleanor's response was immediate and firm. "That's not my problem anymore, Arthur." She then recounted, in a calm, almost detached voice, the birthday betrayal, the spontaneous Cabo vacation, the casual disregard for her feelings, and the decade of financial exploitation. She explained how she had been treated not as a mother or grandmother, but as a convenient, unpaid domestic and financial resource. Arthur listened, silent and attentive, interjecting only with a thoughtful, "I see" or "understood." When she finished, he simply said, "Eleanor, I hear you. And I respect your decision. What are your next steps?" "I want it sold quickly, Arthur. As quickly as possible," she stated. By Tuesday, Eleanor was already moving forward with an efficiency that surprised even herself. She met with 3 different real estate agents, assessing each with a discerning eye. She settled on Brenda Jenkins, a woman with a no-nonsense attitude, a sharp business acumen, and a reputation for swift, decisive action. Brenda was impeccably dressed, her tailored suit and confident smile radiating capability. "Mrs. Davies," Brenda began, her voice crisp. "Your home is truly a gem. Well-maintained. Excellent location. I foresee no issues selling it for top dollar." Eleanor met Brenda's gaze directly. "Brenda, I want this sale finalized, or at least under contract, before Ethan and Chloe return from their vacation next weekend." She watched Brenda's eyebrows raise fractionally. "I'm prioritizing speed over getting the absolute top dollar. I want it done quickly and quietly." Brenda leaned forward, a spark of intrigue in her eyes. "Understood, Mrs. Davies. Your property is in excellent condition, and the market is strong. With some aggressive marketing and strategic pricing, I am confident we can have it under contract within days. We can even stage it virtually to save time and intrusion. Are you prepared for showings to begin almost immediately?" "I am," Eleanor affirmed. A peculiar realization dawned on her then. She had been subconsciously preparing for this moment for months, perhaps even years. Her personal belongings, cherished photographs, small trinkets, sentimental clutter, had slowly, almost imperceptibly, been removed from the common areas of the house. She had tidied away her own small world, leaving only the neutral, impersonal canvas of the house itself. It was as if a part of her had known, long before the sting of her 80th birthday, that this chapter was nearing its close. Later that afternoon, after Brenda had left, armed with photos and a signed listing agreement, Eleanor ascended the grand staircase. She paused at the entrance to the master suite, the room Ethan and Chloe had claimed as their own years ago, shortly after their wedding. It was a chaotic mess, a stark contrast to the immaculate downstairs. Chloe's expensive makeup was scattered across the antique dresser, a rainbow of forgotten compacts and tubes. A pile of laundry lay heaped on an ornate velvet chair. Their shared walk-in closet, usually bursting with designer clothes, stood slightly ajar, revealing a jumble of fashion. Eleanor's eyes fell upon a crumpled bank statement peeking out from beneath a stack of magazines on the nightstand. A flash of their credit card debt, a staggering $23,000, caught her eye. She felt no shock, only a grim confirmation. Her gaze then drifted to Chloe's collection of designer purses, arrayed like trophies on a shelf, and to Ethan's array of expensive golf clubs, gleaming in their rack by the window. It reinforced the truth she had uncovered. Her money hadn't been funding necessities or emergencies. It had been funding their endless cycle of indulgence, their shopping addiction, their curated image of effortless luxury. She walked back downstairs, pausing in the grand living room. She ran a hand over the polished wood of an antique side table, a piece inherited from her grandmother. The furniture, the very walls, held a lifetime of memories. George, reading by the fireplace, Ethan taking his first steps across the oriental rug. The twins' joyful screams echoing through the halls. For so long, these memories had been the house's soul, binding her to it. But now, they felt different. Tinged with a new hue of betrayal and exploitation, they were no longer anchors, but chains. Turning to the empty space where Brenda had stood, Eleanor spoke softly. To no one in particular, but with an absolute certainty. I've been planning this longer than I realized. By Wednesday, Eleanor's meticulously kept home was officially listed, gleaming photos showcased online, a testament to Brenda Jenkins's efficiency. The offers started rolling in almost immediately. By Thursday morning, there were 2 solid bids, both above her asking price for a quick sale. By Friday afternoon, Eleanor had accepted a cash offer from a young couple, eager to move in and start their own family memories within its walls. The closing was scheduled for the following Thursday, a mere week away. This meant that when Ethan and Chloe returned from their spontaneous Cabo vacation on Sunday, they would find strangers already inhabiting what they had so comfortably assumed was their eventual birthright. As Eleanor sat across from Arthur Blackwood, signing the final sales contract, his kind eyes met hers. "Eleanor," he began gently, his voice carrying a hint of concern. "Are you absolutely certain about this? There's no going back once this is done." Eleanor paused, the pen hovering above the dotted line. She didn't hesitate for long. The image of her pristine dining room, set for a party that never materialized, flashed in her mind. She heard Chloe's dismissive tone. "Besides, you're probably just going to clean the house anyway, right? That's what you always do." The memory of the endless bills she had covered, the thankless babysitting, the quiet exploitation, solidified her resolve. "Arthur," she replied, her voice steady and clear, as she firmly pressed the pen to the paper. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." That weekend, while Ethan and Chloe were still posting sun-drenched photos of their lavish Cabo getaway, Chloe, in another new bikini, Ethan raising a celebratory glass, the boys beaming with newly acquired toys, Eleanor was orchestrating her own quiet revolution. With the help of a discreet moving company, she meticulously packed her most treasured belongings: her grandmother's antique quilt, the leather-bound photo albums, a small collection of first-edition books, and George's favorite armchair. Everything else, the furniture, the appliances, the remaining decor, was part of the sale. She said goodbye to the house not with sadness, but with a profound sense of closure. By Saturday evening, she was settled into a beautiful, sun-filled 2-bedroom apartment across town, A space that felt entirely her own, free from the ghosts of expectation and obligation. Sunday afternoon found Eleanor unwinding, arranging her favorite books on a newly purchased shelf in her new living room. The afternoon light streamed through the large window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. A peaceful scene. The quiet hum of contentment was broken by the insistent ring of her phone. It was Ethan. "Mom? Where are you?" His voice was a blend of confusion and annoyance, tinged with a faint echo of the Cabo revelry. "We're at the house. And your car isn't here. The front door is locked." Eleanor took a deep breath, her voice calm and level. "I'm at my apartment, Ethan. My new apartment. I moved last week while you were in Cabo." A sharp, indignant gasp was audible in the background, unmistakably Chloe's. Then Ethan's voice returned, laced with disbelief. "Your apartment? What are you talking about? Mom, don't be silly. Come home. Let's talk about whatever's bothering you. We just got back. We're tired." He sounded as if he were humoring a confused child. "Ethan," Eleanor replied, her voice firm. "I am home. Home is where you're respected and valued. This apartment is my home now. But the house," Ethan stammered, his confusion mounting. "What about the house? Don't you remember whose name is on the deed to that house?" Eleanor asked, a subtle challenge in her tone. There was a pause, a telling silence, as Ethan struggled to form a coherent answer, probably realizing the truth of her statement. Before he could respond, a sudden commotion erupted on his end of the line. Ethan's voice became frantic. "Mom, what's going on? There are people unloading a moving truck in our driveway. Who are they?" "They're the new owners, Ethan," Eleanor stated simply. Watching a squirrel chase another up a tree outside her new window, a stunned silence followed, long and heavy, broken only by Chloe's frantic whispers in the background. Then Ethan's voice, now laced with genuine panic, returned. "The new owners? Mom, what are you talking about? You can't just—" "I sold the house, Ethan," Eleanor interjected, cutting off his bewildered protests. "It closed on Thursday." The line went silent for a moment, then the distinct sound of a phone being fumbled and dropped. Chloe's voice, shrill and utterly furious, took over. "What the hell have you done? You can't just sell our house. That was our future. That was our inheritance." Eleanor closed her eyes for a brief moment, picturing the chaotic master suite, the scattered makeup, the expensive golf clubs, the crushing credit card debt. "Chloe," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I've reclaimed my life. You lived in my house. Now you don't." She anticipated Chloe's next move, the inevitable emotional manipulation. "But what about the boys?" Chloe wailed, her tone shifting from fury to a desperate plea. "Leo and Noah, where will they live? You can't just do this to your grandchildren. The new owners will allow you to collect your belongings within the next 48 hours, Eleanor continued, ignoring the desperate attempt to use the children as leverage. "You'll need to coordinate with them directly." She paused, letting the finality of her words hang in the air. "Goodbye, Chloe." Without another word, Eleanor ended the call, disconnecting from the chaos, and returned to the quiet peace of her new home. "Stay with me through this incredible journey, because you won't believe what happened next when they showed up at my new front door." Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss a single part of my story. Eleanor felt a brief, almost imperceptible flicker of the old guilt, a familiar ache that had for so long dictated her actions, but she ruthlessly pushed it down, squashing it beneath the weight of years of neglect. "Chloe," she said, her voice still unwavering, "the children are crying because of your choices, not mine. Because their parents chose a spontaneous vacation over their grandmother's 80th birthday. Because you've taught them that it's perfectly acceptable to take advantage, and never once modeled gratitude for anything I've ever provided." Ethan's voice took over then, softer, laced with a new desperation. "Please, just tell us where we're supposed to live. The boys have school, their friends are here. We can't just—" His words trailed off, a plea hanging in the air. "Ethan," Eleanor interrupted, her voice gaining a steely edge. I am not responsible for solving your problems. I am not responsible for funding your lifestyle. For years, you never asked for what you needed because you simply took it, never expecting repayment, never offering a word of thanks. She then posed a question that had festered within her for decades. When was the last time you asked about my life? Not my money, not my availability to babysit or clean. When was the last time you genuinely asked how I was feeling, what I wanted, if I was happy? A long, agonizing silence stretched across the line, heavy with unasked questions and unspoken truths. It was the silence of a relationship built on convenience, not connection. Eleanor waited, but no answer came. With a quiet sigh, she ended the call and turned off her phone. She knew their playbook well. The initial shock, the attempts at manipulation, then the anger, followed by desperation. She braced herself for the inevitable onslaught. Tuesday evening, as dusk settled, bringing with it the peaceful quiet of her new neighborhood, Eleanor heard it. An aggressive, insistent knocking on her apartment door. Her heart gave a small, involuntary jump, but her resolve remained firm. Through the peephole, she saw them, Ethan and Chloe. Their faces contorted with a mixture of anger, frustration, and a raw desperation she had never witnessed before. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor slowly unlatched the deadbolt, but kept the security chain firmly in place. She opened the door just enough for the narrow gap, her gaze meeting Chloe's furious eyes. "We're talking now," Eleanor stated calmly, before Chloe could even launch into an accusation. "What do you mean? We're talking now," Chloe shrieked, pressing against the door, trying to force it open further. "Open this door, Eleanor. This is a selfish tantrum. You've made your own grandchildren sleep in a hotel because of your ridiculous fit." Eleanor remained unmoved, her eyes holding Chloe's gaze steadily. "Chloe?" she asked, her voice quiet but piercing. "How much rent did you pay me in the 5 years you lived in my house? For the utilities? For the property taxes? For the upkeep?" Chloe sputtered, momentarily silenced by the unexpected question. "You see, you believed that family doesn't charge rent. And I agree, but family also doesn't treat each other like unpaid servants, a perpetual ATM, and a convenient babysitter, while ignoring their very existence." Ethan stepped forward, trying a more placating tone, though his eyes still smoldered with resentment. "Mom, you always said you liked keeping busy. You always liked helping out. We just thought." "You thought what, Ethan?" "That, keeping busy, meant running your errands, cleaning your son's disgusting bathroom, cooking your meals, and funding your lavish vacations? Did keeping busy also mean forgetting my 80th birthday? Or never once offering to help me with my own chores? Or simply asking how I was, without wanting something in return?" She paused, letting the silence drive home the weight of her words. "You never thought, you just assumed. You just took." Chloe, ever the opportunist, seized on a new angle. "Leo is crying every night, Eleanor. He thinks Grandma threw them out of their home. You're breaking his heart." Her voice was shrill, laced with the manipulative tone Eleanor knew so well. Then, Ethan delivered the final blow, a thinly veiled threat designed to cut Eleanor to her core. His voice lowered, taking on a legalistic edge. "We've consulted a lawyer, Mom, about grandparent rights." He let the words hang in the air, a clear implication that they were willing to use her beloved grandchildren as leverage to tear her new peace apart. A chilling coldness swept over Eleanor, a feeling far deeper than anger. It was the realization of how utterly ruthless they were, how far they would go to regain their lost entitlements. Without a word, she reached for the chain, pulling the door shut with a decisive click, then slid the deadbolt firmly into place. The aggressive knocking resumed, followed by muffled shouts, but Eleanor ignored them. She immediately picked up her phone and dialed Arthur Blackwood. "Arthur," she said, her voice calm despite the pounding in her chest. "Ethan and Chloe just paid me an uninvited visit. They're trying emotional blackmail now. They threatened me with a grandparent rights case." Arthur's voice, though initially surprised, quickly became reassuring. "Eleanor, I understand this is upsetting, but stay calm. Their threats, especially when combined with their history of financial exploitation and neglect you've documented, would look very bad in court. Grandparent rights are tricky, and typically involve proving the grandparent has been denied a relationship without just cause, or that the child is in danger. Their actions make them look like opportunistic parents trying to leverage a sympathetic court to regain access to your resources, not genuinely foster a relationship. A significant weight, one she hadn't realized she was still carrying, lifted from Eleanor's shoulders. Eleanor stood by her apartment window, the setting sun casting long shadows across her new, peaceful living room. The sounds of Ethan and Chloe's furious pounding had long since faded, replaced by the gentle hum of the city. A profound sense of calm settled over her. For the first time in decades, she felt truly safe, truly in control. She had learned, finally, to protect what was hers. Not just her possessions, but her peace, her self-respect, her very essence. The guilt, a constant companion for so long, had finally vanished, replaced by an empowering resolve. 6 months later, spring had softened the sharp edges of winter. Eleanor was tending to her small, flourishing herb garden on her balcony, rosemary and thyme releasing their fragrant oils into the mild air. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID. Ethan. A flicker of something, not dread, but a cautious curiosity, stirred within her. She answered, "Mom?" His voice was softer, smaller, tinged with a weariness she hadn't heard before. The usual bluster, the underlying entitlement, was gone. "Ethan," she replied, her voice neutral. Can I come visit?" he asked, a hint of humility in his tone that surprised her. "I'm alone. Chloe and I. We separated last month." Eleanor paused, weighing his words. This wasn't the Ethan she was used to. "All right," she said finally. "I'll buzz you up." A few minutes later, the chime of her intercom announced his arrival. When she opened the door, even with the security chain on, Eleanor barely recognized him. Ethan stood on her doorstep, a shadow of his former self. He had lost a noticeable amount of weight, his clothes hung loosely, and his face was etched with a profound tiredness. The old swagger, the air of casual confidence, was completely gone. He looked humbled, broken even. "Thanks, Mom," he mumbled, his gaze sweeping over her new apartment. "It's peaceful here." He sounded genuinely impressed, a stark contrast to the possessive way he'd always viewed her old home. Eleanor opened the door fully, and he stepped inside, looking almost hesitant. He sat on the edge of her armchair, not sprawling as he once would have. "Mom," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry. You were right about everything, about how we treated you, about taking advantage, about all of it." His gaze met hers, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Eleanor saw genuine regret in his eyes. "Reality happened," he explained, looking down at his hands. After the house, everything changed. I had to get a second job just to keep us afloat. Chloe, she couldn't adjust to a life without your financial safety net. She moved out with Leo and Noah last month, said she couldn't live like this." He paused, taking a shaky breath. "There were so many times I almost called you for help, Mom. So many times I wanted to just ask for money. But then I remembered your words. About consequences and responsibility. I wanted to prove to myself, and to you, that I could learn." He then spoke of the boys. "They're adjusting to a new school. It's hard, but they're strong. And they're learning to do chores, things they should have learned years ago." As Ethan spoke, Eleanor felt a subtle but profound shift. This wasn't the demanding son, the entitled adult. This was a man, stripped bare of his defenses, acknowledging his faults, taking responsibility for his mistakes. This was the first time in a very long time that he had spoken to her not as a means to an end, but as an adult, seeking to connect. "Are you happy, Ethan?" she asked gently, her voice surprisingly soft. He looked up, a faint, sad smile touching his lips. I'm getting there, Mom. It's hard, but I'm learning a lot. Are you happy? Eleanor returned his gaze, a genuine smile gracing her lips. Yes, Ethan. I am. I feel lighter, he nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I truly regret how I treated you, Mom. How I let Chloe treat you. Like a servant. You didn't deserve that. Eleanor considered his words carefully. She saw a glimmer of the son she had raised, the boy who used to bring her wildflowers. Ethan, she said, I'm willing to try for a real relationship with you, but it has to be based on mutual respect, on boundaries. I'm not going back to being your financial solution or your free childcare. My life has changed, and I've found my peace. He nodded earnestly. I understand, Mom. Truly. I'm learning to solve my own problems now. And I want to get to know you again, the real you, not just the person who always helped me out. As he stood to leave, a newfound lightness in his demeanor, he paused at the door. His eyes, now slightly moist, met hers. Mom, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself. For being so strong. 3 weeks later, they had lunch at a quiet cafe near her new apartment. Ethan insisted on paying, something he hadn't done in years. They talked about books, about shared childhood memories, about simple, everyday things. There was no mention of money, no veiled requests for help. Eleanor looked at him across the table, truly seeing him, and felt a warmth spread through her chest. It felt like she had her real son back. Not long after, Eleanor updated her will. She established a substantial trust fund for Leo and Noah's education, with clear provisions. The funds would be accessible for college, but only if they maintained good grades and, crucially, demonstrated consistent respect and gratitude towards others. It was her final lesson, a quiet testament to the enduring truth she had learned. Real love doesn't enable dependency. It teaches deservingness.